Hello, my name is Carrie and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the tea book challenge tag. This originated on Instagram. I will link the person who I saw this tag from down below. I don't think there is a booktube equivalent, but I thought the questions were fun and could still be answered in a video format where I could explain a little bit more, so I decided to adapt this tag to the video format. For each prompt, there is a type of tea and then an explanation of what that tea should represent. The first one is green tea, a classic you love. For me, I chose All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Remarque. This is a classic that is considered one of the first anti-war novels. This follows a young man named Paul and his friends who have enlisted in World War I, and we follow them both how they viewed the war when they first enlisted and also after they've been in the war for many years. Many of them have died or have lost limbs, become ill, all of these things, and it's a real reflection of the realities of war and the people who were treated as if they were disposable. I first read this in high school and I really loved this book. In the years since, I have reread it both in English and eventually in German. I have a real love for this book because I think not only is it a really impactful, powerful novel, but I think that also the English translation is incredibly well done. It's a book I have gone back to many times over the years. Prompt 2 is Chamomile Tea, a popular book that you didn't like. This one was so easy for me. God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I really did not understand the hype of this book. I thought it was too long. It was so meandering. I was really angry at the end of the book because the explanation that we get for one of the mysteries just really made no sense. I really do not understand the hype around this book. I thought the story sounded intriguing. It's kind of like a literary thriller where it's following these two mysteries that have happened. So about a decade or longer before the events of the book started, there was this young boy who went missing. And it's presumed that he was killed by the serial killer who was in the area. And then over a decade later, his younger sister ends up going missing as well. There's this whole debate, are the mysteries connected? Did the serial killer end up killing that boy? And what happened to the daughter? Even in describing it, you can see there are many threads to this story, and this is, I think, the biggest problem. There's so many threads to this narrative, and the story was just so incredibly meandering. There are all these little red herrings that felt so incredibly useless because it really just dragged out the story. It's a long book. I felt like it was honestly too long, and I didn't care enough about all these shifts in perspective that didn't really add anything to the story of substance because they were so slow moving. There are two big reveals in this story. One was interesting. The other one felt so incredibly implausible and just unnecessary to the narrative. I really couldn't understand why this had been made into such a big deal. And that made me so angry in finishing that book because I truly wondered what was the point of all of this, because it felt like that book was leading to nothing. And it still shocks me when I see people be like, I love this book so much, it was so amazing, because I can understand it had beautiful writing in many parts, but it went way too long and led to something that I was just not satisfied with. Prompt 3 is Jasmine Tea, a book with a pretty cover. For this, I wanted to choose The Last Cuentista. This is by Donna, Barba, Higuera, and I think this is just such a beautiful cover. The colors, the intricacy in the design. I haven't read this one yet. It's still on my TBR. I think I have been so hesitant to read it though because this is, I think, like a dystopian where there's a woman who her family is like a long line of storytellers, but there's a comet that has hit the earth and there's only these very small communities that have survived. I believe they end up going to a new planet, and there she's like one of the only people that can tell the story of Earth. I'm not 100% sure if that's accurate to what this story is about, but I believe that's my understanding of it. And I was kind of confused when I first picked this one up because I read the synopsis and I thought the cover was going to mean that it was like more like magical realism, but it's definitely seeming more sci-fi, which is a genre that I don't journey into very often. So I think that's another hesitancy I have in officially starting this one. Number 4 is Hibiscus Tea, an author you love. I have to say S.K. Ali for this one. I have read almost all of her books, and across different genres, she just writes so beautifully. I love her characters. I love her narrative voice, and I have so much love for this author. I'm really excited to read her newest book, which is Fledgling. It's I think like an assassin's fantasy, and it just sounds so lovely. I also love this author as a person. I think what she shares on social media, uplifting other authors and socio-political events, I really love how she uses her voice, and I think she's a really amazing person. Number 5 is Masala tea, an iconic book character. I thought a lot about this one because there are so many characters that I've read that I feel like are iconic in very different ways. And one that is a character that has stuck with me because I still to this day don't fully understand how I feel about this character, but I think the journey of the character was still really impactful. And that is Rin from the Poppy War series. I have so many mixed emotions about her as a character, but I still am just so shocked about how R.F. Kuang could make a character so complex. I never felt like I fully loved or fully hated her. There was this gray area that she fell into, and not even just morally gray, it's this gray area of a character who has been through so much trauma and so many difficult experiences in life, who has made choices based on that trauma, but yet still is trying to think about other people and trying to see a bigger picture of a world that she imagined, and that not living up to what she hoped. Oh, just such a difficult character to even describe and to talk about. However, because of that, I think she perfectly fits into this role of an iconic character. Number 6 is Darjeeling Tea, a translated book that you love. I was really debating this one because in reviewing the books that I have read over the years, I am realizing translated reads have not made up a really large majority of my reading. And looking at how many of those were really favorite books, it was an even smaller number. I thought about saying something by Han Kang for this because I love her books and her writing. However, I wanted to kind of go outside of that box and talk about an author who I know is much beloved, but I only read them for the first time this year, and it really shocked me not only how beautiful the story was, how invested I was in the characters, and how eager I am to read more from this author, but the incredible translation that made it possible for me to read this author, and that is Beartown by Frederik Backman. I was so incredibly shocked how much I loved this book, so much so that I really cannot wait to return to Beartown in the next 2 books because I just care so deeply about these characters. Even though I read them months ago, I still think about this book often, and Neil Smith's translation is just something that I think it's just a beautiful representation of the art of translation and the skill that it takes, because wow, the way that book emotionally impacted me, I can't even imagine how that came together to make sure that that translation was so impactful for foreign readers. The last tea is Matcha, and this is my personal favorite, but the prompt for this one is a book you keep thinking about. For this, I have to say We Do Not Part by Han Kang. I think this is the first book that I've ever not been willing to give a rating to. I gave one in my May wrap-up, but since then I have removed my rating from Goodreads. I think this is the first book that I've ever genuinely not wanted to give a rating to because my thoughts on this have been so jumbled. There are days where I think about this book and I think it could be a 5-star read. I think I do really love this book, but then there are days where I'm like, I had so many issues with this and that, and I struggled through this book so much. There's something about this book that I keep coming back to and I keep reflecting on. I've had a lot more conversations about this book. I've talked about this book with so many people since finishing it. Not only just people in my book club, but also some of my coworkers and friends have read the book in English and Turkish. And so that's led to really interesting discussions. I also have been discussing this book with friends on Goodreads and on social media because I just really want to keep talking about it. There's so much to analyze in this book and so much that I find really fascinating to discuss. It's one that I have not stopped thinking about, and it's officially been about a month since I finished reading it. It still has just stuck its claws in me. Those are all of the prompts and thus all of the books that I have to talk with you about today. I would love to hear your responses to these prompts, whether that be down below in the comments or in your own video. I think this is a really fun challenge to talk about books that we may not commonly discuss. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and happy reading. Bye.